Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Get Wealth Podcast. Super excited about this one today. I got Kyle Allen on. No surprise, it's another real estate investor. He's been doing really well as an entrepreneur, fixing and flipping, buy and hold, you name it. This guy does it with real estate, and he's doing it at a really high level. So I think there's something we can all learn, and I'm excited to get started on this today, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course, Brendan. I appreciate for having me on, and definitely excited to share with you guys about kind of how I got started in real estate and, kind of what we're up to now. I mean, at the end of the day, why I love real estate is because there's so many ways and vehicles that you can make money in it, where it's not just like, hey, you go here and you just do this one thing and that's it, right? And I think that's one of like the cool parts is everyone kind of finds their own niche inside of real estate because it's a very broad umbrella of an industry.
So let's start there. How did you get started in real estate? Because I know for me, when I think of real estate, the first thing that comes to mind is, I guess like a year ago now was, oh, you got to be a real estate agent. What else can you do? Like, how did you realize that there's all these other opportunities out there?
Yeah. So just like yourself, man, I completely thought the same thing, right? I was like, you can only become a real estate agent. That's kind of like, what I would call like the 80% that the world sees is just like, hey, you can become a real estate agent. And I got introduced and kind of into the business at 16. So I was working, umpiring like baseball games, like Little League baseball games at the time. And, we'd basically just work like part-time on it. And I had a buddy of mine in high school that was like, hey, I'm working for this company that's passing out signs and flyers for, a couple real estate agents. And I got basically kind of like introduced to it that way. So started literally at bottom of like the floor, like, hey, go pass out flyers, getting paid basically enough money to cover gas and a little bit to go eat out at like In-N-Out or whatever, right? So I started kind of, doing that, and I really fell in love with it, right? I wanted to be an architect when I was like getting started, and I realized, hey, I had to go to a lot more school, had to go to a lot more courses, a lot more things, and I was like, and then I started thinking about it. I was like, how can I get into this? And I was like, well, what if I was the actual owner of the real estate instead of just the guy that worked on the real estate? So I started kind of kind of seeking out people that were investing in real estate at the time. And there wasn't too many people. There was one of the guys that we do a lot of his open houses because we put out the signs for it. And I ran into him at one of the open houses and he's like, oh yeah, like I actually flip all these houses. That's why all of them looked like stunning. And I was like, interesting. So you actually own this and then you sell it. And he's like, yeah. So he's like, come over to my office. And his name was Doug Hopkins. He's a big investor here in the Phoenix area. Does a lot of commercials on like Fox and, other news channels and stuff like that. So I was like, dang, like this guy's all over the news. He must be like super like wealthy. You know what I mean? So I sat down at his office and we started talking about kind of what he was doing. I asked this weird question. I was like, hey, like how much money do you make? And he's like, he told me over 6 figures. And I was like, a month. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's a lot of money a month to be making. He explained he had fix and flips. He was wholesaling and he had rental properties. And I was like, wow, so you got 3 different ways that you're making money. Oh, and also he was a traditional real estate agent too, right? So 4 different ways that he was making money. And I was like, that's like really cool. How do I get going in this? So I thought I was way too young. I had no experience. I was like, I can't do this. So what I keep doing, I kept on passing out those flyers, putting out those signs. And I didn't realize until later on that I could actually invest in real estate. So fast forward a couple of years, basically got started, putting out signs for myself. I started my own business. I was working in this factory, basically printing off like advertising, and I was just like super unhappy. So what I did is I just saving money. I had like $5,000 saved up, and I was like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to roll the dice on me. So I decided to start my own business doing that, passing out flyers and signs while I was still in college. And, I was going to college, trying to do this business, like, full time, really trying to make it well. And I realized it was a lot harder once I started doing that. So then I got connected with people and I realized the value of basically building relationships to do business with, because a lot of people try to do everything by themselves. They don't ask for help. They don't get, advice from people. So I got mentored by a guy down there named Mike, and he basically showed me really how to invest in real estate. So I, at first, just was passing out those flyers and signs and it ended up just keep on giving value. So then from that, I started learning how to do sales processes, marketing strategies, creating CRM systems, pretty much anything that could do to help me get closer to the deal, right? Because I was like, hey, like if I can provide value to this person, he'll teach me more about real estate. So fast forward, helped him do a bunch of deals, kept on learning about it, got introduced to his network, started talking with all of these guys across the nation that were doing hundreds of deals a year. And I was like, wow, like I'm like in the right place. I'm learning a bunch, but I was still not doing real estate myself. So at like 2021, I basically decided, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to start doing real estate. But I didn't have a ton of money. I had like, tens of thousands of dollars in the bank account because my other business kept on going pretty well and I was making some good money. So I was like, I'm going to roll the dice on myself and start this new business venture, actually investing in real estate. So what I did is I started spending a bunch of money on marketing and sales processes and systems because that's kind of where my background was, but I had no idea how to actually talk to a seller. So I kept on flopping on all of these leads that I was getting. I was like getting so frustrated. I was like, oh my God, I should just be doing what I'm doing with my marketing stuff. I'm making more money, So I took 4 months to get my first deal, just calling leads, talking with them. And finally I got the first deal. And I'm like literally about to get this guy to sign the contract. And he goes, well, Kyle, I got this higher offer. It was like $3,000 more. And I know I can't go over this offer because I talked with a couple other people and they're like, if you get me at this house, you'll make $12,000. So I was like, cool. So the offer was higher and I was like, dang, like that's a lot of work. And I didn't want to lose the opportunity. So I was like, all right, I can't go up. So I tried to see if he was just playing with me. He accepts the other offer, gives me a call then like 10 days later, because I kept on like following up with him after. And I was like, hey, let me know, Bobby, if anything goes like south. Like I'd love to, help out and go there. So he basically gives me a call back and he's like, Kyle, you called at the right time, because I called him like 30 minutes before that. He's like, you called at the right time. This other guy actually just canceled his contract. It was another wholesaler, right? And I was like, sweet. I was like, I already know the guy's going to buy the house from me because he looked at it. He looked at the pictures, walked it with me and all that good stuff. So I was like, perfect. So got it under contract, assigned it, went through all of these ups and downs because there was this crazy tenant in there. And we ended up actually closing the deal out and made 12 grand on it. And that was like my first deal, which was a huge win, right? And, I was going through this and I was like, just like battling my head. I was like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I started changing my attitude about the approach of, this is really possible. So then that kind of sparked my interest of, learning about how to wholesale. And then from there, then, I was able to start building up enough capital for myself where I eventually decided to gamble and go, hey, I want to go do a fix and flip now. Right. And it was a scary moment. That was one of the biggest checks I ever wrote. And I was like, shit, I don't even own a house myself yet, but I'm about to go flip a house. And I just remember like, I was like literally like signing the check and my hand was just shaking. And I was like, oh shit. It's like, this is it, and it's funny. You like look back at these things and you're always nervous about them when you're first doing it. And as you continue to keep doing it and get better, that's where your life really starts to change and you start going, hey, I can really do this. This is really possible. And you start seeing it. But for a while, I was like, this whole wholesaling shit, like it's a bunch of bullshit. It's never, I can never make any money. And it's difficult, right? For a lot of people to get started in it. So what I'd recommend is like, I wouldn't be anywhere I am today without the people that I was bouncing ideas off of, helping and sharing and adding value. And they would do the same to me. And this game is a lot about collaboration. And that's kind of, as I progressively have been doing it, I've been just trying to do more. And, I love what you're doing here on this podcast of, collaborating with, people that are doing deals and growing your own business and sharing their story. I think that's super amazing what you're doing. And it's going to get you really far with what you're doing with this podcast. So just want to let you know that.
Yeah. No, dude, thanks, man. And I like everything you said. I think that's a good business model because it's not like you're giving up anything. If you work with someone else who's doing it at a higher level, you're essentially doubling. Like a good partnership isn't half and half. It's when it's one half and one half, make twice as much as you would have had originally. And then, the more value that you can provide, the further along it's going to take you and it's going to take them. And it's just ultimately like a constantly building process. But I mean, that's really cool how you got your first deal. I think a lot of people underestimate the amount of upfront work it takes, especially to get that first deal. Even 4 months is actually fairly quick to get that first deal under contract. What was your mindset like getting up to that point? Because I'm sure there's just a lot of self-doubt and like, does this work? You haven't done it before. Is it real? Like, are you good enough? Like, how did you keep your mind focused on getting to that point and across that line?
Yeah. So, I mean, like the biggest thing is like, you have to take consistent actions, right? And I think a lot of the times when you're taking these consistent actions and you're not getting the result that you desire, it's like easy to like kind of like fall out of it. So one of the things that I was kind of like learning about at the time is called gamification. And I don't know if you've ever heard about that before, but basically it's about like turning something that seems like, making phone calls or cold calls or whatever you're doing, driving for dollars, whatever it might be, turning it into a game for yourself. Right. And, growing up, I played baseball, I wrestled, and a couple other different sports. And, when you play games, it's fun. It's supposed to be fun. Right. And if you're not having fun with it, you're not going to show up the same way. So what I started doing is I started turning it into a game for myself. Right. And there was this book at the time that really helped me out. It's called Go for No. And instead of me going for, I want someone to sell me my house, I want to hit 200 people that are going to tell me, screw off, F off, leave me alone, don't call me again. And I was going to try to go for 200 people a day for that. Right. So I was going for literally the opposite result of what I was actually looking for. And it sounds weird. And you're like, why is this guy nuts? But at first, what you start actually realizing is that you're going to take those actions. And the reason why this book talks about going for no instead of going for a yes is because it's a process of elimination. All of these people you're trying to qualify, because when you're an investor, a lot of the deals and a lot of the houses we look for, they're kind of a dime a dozen. Like, 9 of them are going to be completely not capable of doing a deal cash, right? Or not interested in that cash offer because it's just going to be too low. And that's okay, right? And I can't control that, but what I can control is what I'm looking for. And I'm going to have to qualify as many people as I possibly can. So that has to eliminate 200 people a day, right? To go find that one person every single day. And that's what we just try to do, is we just try to get so many opportunities where it doesn't matter if one falls out, or, one goes the wrong direction, or if they take that other offer, right? Because if you're making this progress, you're going to keep building up that pipeline of actually interested people that actually care about it, instead of just going, oh shit, I'm never going to get someone to say yes. Like, I'm shooting for no, right? So like that really like changed my perspective of it. And I had a sales coach, Gary at the time, who was helping me out and talking about it and all that good stuff. So he recommended that book. Helps out a lot of real estate professionals, across the nation doing that type of stuff. So super like valuable lesson to switch that mindset. So now when someone tells me no, it's like, I'm not fazed by it. You know what I mean? I get told no every single day and it's okay, but I know I'm looking for that one yes. And that's the cool part about real estate. You just need one. So.
Yeah, that's so cool. And yeah, like exactly that one yes also could give you so much momentum, right? It's a really high return once you go through all that rejection and all those no's. And it's a cool way of kind of structuring it in your mind so it seems like a more achievable thing, because no one likes to be told no all day, but
no.
if there's a prize at the end of it, yeah, sure. Between 200 no's equal, $12,000. I think there's a lot of people that would roll the dice on that. So you said starting out, you had this other marketing business that allowed you to kind of carry that over into real estate. What was your lead generation strategy starting out with? Were you spending that on marketing, like direct mailers or door knocking or cold calling? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so a lot of the first stuff that I was doing, because I didn't have a ton of money, was cold calling and text message marketing. So one of the first things that I did, I was in a position to go hire a VA, and that VA was just going to sit there and just dial all day long. So that allowed me to go get time inside of my marketing business that was making me money, right? Because at first real estate wasn't making me any money. So I couldn't afford to just leave that income stream. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then what I would do from 4 to 7 is I would then follow up with all of the people that they called that were interested, and then start talking with those people, right? So I was basically able to filter out a lot of the no's from someone else to help me out. And then it got to a point where I wasn't able to then afford the VA anymore. So I had to fire the VA, and then I had to just make calls myself, because I was like going 3 months into it and I was like, still haven't gotten a deal. I'm paying this person full time, for the last 3 months. And, even though the VA is a lot cheaper than, a US citizen would have been, it still just was eating into this business. You know what I mean? And I was like, all right, well, I got to just kind of pony up and I got to start making these calls myself. So then from 4 to 7 every day, I just rail cold calls of people that, we were text messaging throughout the day, filtering them out, and then just calling those people. So what I did was I tried to use tools and systems to basically save myself time. So that way I could just talk with more qualified people, because when you're first getting started, and that's where a lot of people I think get discouraged, is that they're the one filtering them all out, right? And that's probably one of the hardest things that you could ever do. And I constantly remind my VAs now like you're doing probably the hardest job, not gonna lie, right? Like you're literally taking the brunt of all of the shit that we're getting. And it sucks when it's like that, but that's what you have to kind of do to get started. And then from there, then we started reaching out, we started building like B2B relationships, which is super fruitful and very beneficial for your business. Because I came from that B2B world, right? Where it was like monthly reoccurring marketing revenue that we were getting or system revenue that we were getting. So it was like kind of like with the sellers, when you go direct to seller, it was like, cool, I get a $12,000 hit. But guess what? That seller, Bobby, that I got that first deal from, I've never heard from him again. I've reached out, gotten referral from him, all that good stuff. But does he have any people? Does he have any more houses to sell? No, right? Like that was the one he was looking to sell, and that was it, right? So, but with, let's say, like an agent or another wholesaler, or even just like moving companies, or there's a lot of different people that you can kind of go into and build a B2B relationship to kind of go get those deals. So then we started doing that. Second phase was then building those B2B relationships, keeping the direct to seller stuff going. And then what we did is we just doubled down. Every time that we got a deal from something, spend more money on it, right? Don't go chase that rabbit tail of, oh shit, I should do this one next, and then this one, and then this one. Like literally what I would do is if I was spending $1,000 on marketing, on text messages, I'd go roll it to 2 the next month. That got me a deal. That got me a deal. And then I'd go roll it to 3 or 4 or whatever it was. And then it kept on building up from there.
Wow. That's so good. That's crazy what you said about the VA, because I just went through that same thing where so I did, I think, 3 deals, my first 3 deals. And then I'm like, okay, well, I can hire a VA now, and went out and spent some money on that, invested back into the business. And then the first week was really weird. The first week was going really well. I was getting some leads. I was following up with them. There were some promising ones. And then all my numbers just start getting marked as spam. And every time I buy new numbers, they start getting marked as spam again. So like a whole month of just like this thing eating my business. Like I'm only spending money now, and there's like no real leads coming in because no one's answering a potential spam call. And so I was completely convinced I wasn't going to have to do this, but I had to, like you did, let the VA go, which is just, I mean, it's a numbers thing. You can't continuously invest in something that's not going to, provide any result from it. So I had to let the VA go back to square one, start picking up the phones again myself, just doing calls, a certain amount of time every day. Now leads start coming back in, getting more deals, and then eventually, I guess, I don't know. So then you decided to get VAs again, or then you transitioned to B2B?
Yeah, so we definitely got VAs again. I mean, my business would not run without my VAs, to be completely honest. Yeah. They help out with a lot of qualifying, setting up appointments, following back up with sellers, because like once you start getting enough opportunities, it's hard to get distracted and get caught up in the weeds for some of the deals that you're working on, right? Especially with real estate. Like a lot of people don't like remember, like this deal is not going to close out like this week always, right? Like it might close out in 3 months from now. So like the follow-up sometimes is really key of like when that's going to go in there. And that's kind of what we have our VAs do too, is, they can listen to all of our phone calls that I have. They can, basically be as updated as I am about that lead and then take back over. So I'm only really just hopping on the call with people that are really at that point where like, we're ready to talk about numbers. We're talking about the house. We're really figuring out what we can do to help them out at the end of the day. And then everything else is handled by them.
Right. But which that's a good spot to get to, because that's the fun part, right? Talking with people. I mean, I don't know, probably not for everybody, but for me, that seems like the real fun is negotiating the deal and figuring out what works, and then creating a win-win. If you can have someone on the other end that's like super excited and thankful that you're able to come in and help their situation, that's a really good feeling.
100%. And that's exactly what we focus on every day, is like, how do I go help and add value? Where can I go do that, right? Where can I go help this seller or this person that's in need? Because there's a lot of, like in this business, there's a lot of distress situations. We deal with a lot of probate situations, which, if you're not familiar with that word, basically it means someone passed away and kind of their house or their belongings are kind of in this limbo stage with their relatives or family members, right? And, when you're dealing with something like that, it's a tricky situation of how to talk about it. And, a lot of emotion and memories are made in houses too, right? So a couple of deals that we did this last month, You gotta tread easy with how you can help and provide value with people. And, like you said, we're all about creating win-win solutions and trying to help them out every way we can.
So cool. Yeah. So, I mean, just by your Instagram, you're obviously doing a lot now. You got a lot of flips going on. You're always looking for deals. How are you funding these deals? Is it all out of your own pocket right now, or you're using some PM?
Yeah. So one of the best things that you could ever do as soon as you start kind of building your real estate business is OPM. So a lot of people have maybe heard of that once or twice, but just to reiterate, if you've never heard it before, it's called other people's money. And this is one of the things that I think a lot of investors are afraid of doing, especially once you kind of get in that motive of like, hey, you're doing some deals. You're like, okay, well, let's just say when I first got started in real estate investing, I was just wholesaling, right? I was never closing on any of these properties. I never even did a double close. I still haven't even done a double close. I've either just closed on it, bought and flipped it, or just assigned it, right? And I think a lot of people, they just kind of get stuck in that rat race of just wholesaling, and wholesaling is a job and flipping is just a higher paying job too as well. But what OPM allows you to do is it allows you then create the ability to go buy and keep things, right? So what I'm trying to do right now is every one of our flips, we're trying to keep every one out of 5 of them, right? So if I go flip 5 houses, I'm trying to keep one of them as a rental portfolio and just keep building that and building that, right? And so what we do is we talk and we connect with people about basically OPM and how we can get them involved in our deals. And one of the cool parts about building an online presence or just a presence in general with, social media or the internet, it allows you to connect with a lot of people and help them out because there's a lot of people that real estate, the investing business is just not for them to be the operators inside of it, right? And that doesn't mean they can't be included in the deal still. There's a lot of people that should be included in those deals and just be a passive investor, which, would be considered one of our private money lenders. And what we basically do with them is we usually give them a preferred rate of return on it, and basically just pay them on a monthly basis, right? So we just got 2 new private lenders, $100,000 that came into our business. They're going to get, a monthly payment every single month, and it's just mailbox money for them. We personally guarantee those notes to make sure that everything, if I mess up, like I still am liable, I'm still on the hook for that money, right? So you got to make sure that you're treating that money then like yourself, right? And the key thing that like switched in my head of like when OPM really became like something I wanted to learn more about was when I had someone explain it to me that you're not borrowing this money, you're paying for that money to borrow, right? And that's where I think a lot of people like get it twisted. They're like, oh, I need to go borrow all this money. I got to go take on all this debt. It feels weird. And you're like, shit, I don't want to do that. But instead, if you switch it to, hey, I'm paying to use this money, just like anything else, right? Like the computer that I'm talking to you on, I'm paying to use this computer to help my business, right? You don't look at it weird, like, it's a $2,000 computer, whatever. But when you start going in that direction of, hey, I'm basically paying to borrow this money instead, right? And if you find good deals already and you can go wholesaling for 20 grand or 30 grand or even just 10 grand, guess what? You should be flipping some of those deals yourself, right? And if flipping's not for you, then you should at least be trying to keep one of them as a rental property. Maybe that's 1 out of 10, maybe that's 1 out of 15. And you can then use OPM to do that. So that way you can get yourself out of the rat race. So I've been able to pick up 4 units this year because of that. We picked up a fourplex, used OPM, had other people's money involved in the deal. I'm into the deal with nothing. And guess what? I'm going to own this fourplex that already produces us it's like $2,200 a month in passive cash flow after all expenses. And I was allowed to do that because I was able to figure out, hey, this person doesn't have the time to do real estate, but they have the money, right? Let's connect. Let's create a partnership that's going to be beneficial for both of us. So I think that's where, yeah. And when you're first getting started and you don't have a track record, right? I didn't have a track record of doing any flips or wholesale deal or doing any flips or buying holds. So when I had wholesale deals, I was like, hey, look at this one that I wholesaled to this guy. He made 60 grand on this. Look at this guy that I wholesaled this one. So then I used other people, right, to go, hey, I found that deal. Instead, we could be making that money instead, right? So you get them on your team by showing them what you did beforehand, even if you haven't successfully completed that first flip yet. And you just kind of talk about that, right? Like that's why I think it's so easy to go from wholesaling to flipping because it's the same thing. You're just being the end buyer instead. So all you got to do is just figure out how to get that cash. And then when you're first getting started too, like don't worry about raising, let's say you're buying a house for $300,000. You could raise, let's say, 20% of that, go get a hard money lender, put the 20% down of the OPM. Now you're doing this deal without any of your own money and you're still into the deal. You know what I mean? So a lot of people think, oh, I got to go get the whole $300,000 from, Bobby Joe down the street or whoever it is. Right. And no, it's like, you just got to get, maybe $100,000 or, $50,000, whatever, depending on your market. So,
yeah, that's such a powerful strategy because it allows you to scale. It allows you to take it from just you to being able to utilize as many people in your network that you've been able to build, which is, I mean, that's how you've been able to be so successful, and how other people at a high level are doing it. Can we dissect that fourplex deal? Because that sounds really interesting. So you use other people's money, and then did you rehab it and like refinance it, or how does that work?
yeah, so it's still in the process of basically going through the whole Burr method. So one of the cool parts about it is a lot of people think that you have to always get like a hard money lender or a bank to do it. In this case, I actually used this seller to be my bank, right? So I got a seller financing deal with this seller. I was originally trying to buy it just to fix and flip. It came into me from one of our referral partners that was an agent. They're like, hey, they want to sell this fourplex. I really don't deal with multifamily. It's really beat up. And I was like, cool, I love it. Like, that's right up my alley, right? And so I drove over to the fourplex, looked at it, and I was like, oh shit, this thing needs a lot of work, right? So I came back to them. I gave them, a low ball cash offer, and they're like, we're really not in a rush to sell it. It's still making us money. We were really hoping to get like this much for it. And I was like, okay, well, I have this other way that I can buy it. And at the time, like the margins were just too slim because I was like, it's going to need at least 100K worth of work. And, the house is definitely like falling apart. And like, there wasn't very many solid comps in the neighborhood. So I was like, hey, like I kind of need it at this or else like, it's not worth the gamble. So they're like, oh, we're not interested. So I was like, what about this other way that I can help you get to that number? So then I got them to basically carry the note on the property. So I didn't have to come up with any down payment other than $20,000 and then the renovation budget. So we got into this property for $120,000 total to go renovate it. They carried the note the whole time, right? They still carry it today. And we basically own and control that property, and they're now the bank, right? So that house, we bought it for $455,000. So 4 units. So whatever that comes out to be, like 110,000 a unit. So we basically bought that. We renovated each of the units. And then now that house's fourplex is worth like 700,000. Or just recent comp that just sold. So we have obviously a ton of equity in there, about $200,000 worth of equity of that. So what we'll do is we'll basically refinance into a traditional bank loan, 20, 25, 30 fixed year AM, and then basically get all of our cash back and then own the property without having to put any money down. So,
and that's going to take the owner carry out of the situation, right? Because they'll be out of the deal then at that point.
Yeah, so they'll be out of the deal, but guess what I'm going to do is I'm paying them right now about 6% interest on their money.
Mm-hmm.
Carry that note. I'm going to go take them over and I'm going to turn them into a private lender afterwards and pay them a little bit more money. So now I'm using their money to go buy fix and flips and all that good stuff, or go buy another rental property, and giving them that security of a fixed interest rate, that they're going to get every single month. And it's just mailbox money for them, and they don't have to go worry about doing X, Y, and Z, right? So now I can go take that $400,000 because I've showed them my properties. I showed them what we flipped and all that good stuff. And it's about building those relationships with these people, right? So this is how I turned, a potential seller, right, into then the bank to be my, basically hard money lender or whatever you want to call it, private lender. And then I'm going to turn them into another private lender afterwards to keep their money moving for them. Because you got to listen to what people are saying. And the whole time when I was talking with them, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. That was their biggest concern, right? They don't trust the stock market. They love real estate because of the cash flow. They have tax savings because of it. So I'm like, cool. Like, but you guys don't want to do real estate actively. They're in their 80s. You know what I mean? Like, do you think like this guy's going to go out and hunt for real estate in his 80s? Hell no. Like he's going to play golf or, going to play, cards at the clubhouse, right? Like his thing is not doing that. So that's where you can build those relationships and go take it to the next level with these people.
Wow, that's such a powerful thing. I mean, that's real estate at the highest level right there. You're doing it all. You've got creative finance in there. You got to fix and flip. You got using other people's money. So
Yeah, that was a cool deal. There was a lot of moving parts in that one.
yeah. So someone just starting out, it's probably like, what's going on? Seller finance, OPM, like, there's a lot of terms in there, but really I mean, once you know one, there's not really that many things to learn once you know it all. It's just a combination of a bunch of things. And once it makes sense, if you do it as long as you do it, just probably becomes like another language, right?
Yeah, it's just like becoming like a doctor or something like that, right? Like you start realizing, you start seeing symptoms, you start seeing, things, and you go, hey, here's the diagnosis that I can help out with, right? And I think a lot of people like they get overwhelmed by like the education of this. And I tell people like all the time, I'm like, the best way you're gonna ever go learn anything, is by doing it. I learned so much from that deal, and I learned so much from every deal that we do. Like we just closed on a deal that we had to deal with an out-of-state owner, right? And I've never had to deal with that. So we had to figure out how to get the paperwork all the way out to the UK, have someone to, officiate and sign it, so notarize it, send it all the way back, and dealing with, different time zones and schedules and all this crazy shit. Like it pushed
out of the country.
Yeah, out of the country. Right? That was the first time I've ever done that, right?
Wow.
And there's so many different things that every deal you're always learning something, right? Like there's always like, that's why I love the business. It's just a constant problem solving. And, if you can get addicted to solving other people's problems, you're going to make a lot of money in the process of doing that.
That's awesome. So one of the questions I have, and I'm sure a lot of people when they're first getting started have this question as well, but as far as disposition, I think a lot of people overlook that. Do you recommend building up a big cash buyer database, or is that something that should stop you from just taking action and going out and trying to find deals every day?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, if you can build a buyer's list, do it. Right. So your buyer's list it's funny because we just talked about OPM. That's a great way to go find OPM too, by the way. I think a lot of people, no one talks about that. And if you think about it, there's a lot of real estate investors that, do 1 or 2, 3, 4 or 5 deals, and that's all they do. Right. But then they have this money from those deals that they did that they want to still do real estate, but they don't trust themselves to do it, or they want to be involved, but they don't have the time to do it, whatever the circumstance might be. So I really recommend building a buyer's list only if you plan on like really wholesaling, right? If you're just planning on doing fix and flips, it's kind of worthless to have that buyer's list, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of do a couple different things with it, but like if you're going to be a wholesaler, build that buyer's list up as much as you possibly can. Even if that means at first where you're just dispoing other people's properties, which we still do today, because we get other wholesalers that reach out to us and go, hey, I can't find a buyer for this. So we go step in, we try to solve their problem. First, I try to see if I can buy it first, right? If I can't buy it, then I'll go, hey, how can I help you, right? Where do you have this property locked up? What can I do to help you to sell it? And building those relationships with people, are going to help you out a long way. Like today, we did 2 deals down in Tucson, and basically the wholesaler I'm working with on them is like, hey, dude, I don't have much of a buyer's list down there. It's like, perfect. I got a massive buyer's list. I went to college down there. That's where I got started. I wholesaled my first deal down there. So I know a lot of people that buy houses just like this. Sent it over to a couple of people, built that relationship with them. Boom, let's go. Sign the contract, send it. Let's get the deal done, right? Where do I wire the money is basically what they're asking as soon as this contract's done. And once you can build that relationship up, it's going to help you to grow your business, right? Because now you're not just fixed on only selling your own deals and working your own deals. You're able to help out other people and collaborate, right? It's about that ability to add value where you can, right? So at first it might be challenging because you're going to be limited on time and you're going to be limited on things. Try to focus and get really good at one. And then if you can start scaling it out, maybe partnering with someone who has a big buyer's list that you could still make money on, and go find them opportunities and do that stuff, right? Like the deal that we did that was out of state, had another wholesaler send it to another wholesaler, and I was the end person that ended up finding the buyer for it. There was $39,000 of assignment fees in all 3 of us, right? So it's like there's plenty of money to be made if it's a good deal. And I think that's where a lot of people like forget about it. It's like, well, I don't know if I can sell this. I don't know if I can do that. Well, you build a big enough buyer's list, you can almost sell anything that has a good deal, that has margins on it, as long as your investors see that and you kind of talk to them about the deal and see how you can basically find out what they're looking for. Because everyone's criteria is different. There might be people that look at one deal and say AVR is, after repair value is 300. Another person says it's 290. Another person says it's 295. Another person says it's 310, right? Everyone's going to have different numbers. everyone's going to have different numbers on their rehab of, oh, this is going to cost 20, 30, 50, whatever it's going to cost on renovation. So if you can find the right person that's willing to take on the deal and connect them and make some money in the meantime, I mean, it's a great way to be, great way to do deals early on and not have to worry about a whole lot, right? Because you're just finding the buyer. So
yeah. All right. So would your little piece there for someone's like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to sell this deal, would your advice to be do that? Or would you also say, dude, just go out, learn out, find leads, get them under contract, or stay with me?
So if you got your own deal under contract, you should 100% learn how to go find cash buyers, right? Like you're going to be leaving a lot of money on the table by partnering up with a guy like me, because I'm going to want to cut out of the deal, right? My time is worth something and all that good stuff, right? So when we do deals, we either do a 50-50 split with the wholesaler, or what we'll do is we'll put on like a fee on top of it, like that last deal that I told you. And, if we can find a middle ground, and some deals will start with, hey, let's tack on the fee on top of it. And then 5 days go past and they're 1 day away from their inspection period, and I get an offer for lower. And I'm like, hey, like you guys are either going to cancel this contract or we can make money together. I don't really care either way. I'd like to make money, but if you guys are obviously going to be stupid, like let's be stupid, So a lot of people, like, that's like where a lot of people don't realize either. It's about following up on these deals, seeing whatever everything is. Cause we get a lot of new wholesalers that send out stuff to us and they're like, oh, it's buy it for 610 and it's worth, only like 650 as ARV. And I'm like, there's like, just real estate commissions at that price point, like ruin the whole deal. You know what I mean? Like, let alone renovations or anything else and me making a profit, like, there's no margin on the bone. And then, we talk with them, they're wanting a stupid assignment fee of $45,000, which you can make on a deal, which I'm never saying, but if there's not enough meat on the bone, you got to realize that right out the get-go and go, hey, I can't be greedy on this deal, right?
Yeah.
Like those Tucson deals I was telling you about, had another wholesaler send them to me, sent them just at a little bit of a higher price point because they were already kind of like on the skinnier side. So I was like, I'm not going to make a $10,000 assignment fee for dispoing this. I'm going to make 3 or 5,000. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just got to be happy with those small wins when you're dispoing, because you can make some huge rips on them, but like at the end of the day, most of them are going to be 2,000, 5,000, somewhere in that range. You might be able to push 10 if you're really good, or you have some good acquisition people that you're getting deals from, that you can really kind of get those spreads on them.
Yeah, that's good. Have you obviously probably know Steve Trang, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was listening to one of his recent podcasts with, I forget the name of the guy, but he made Investor Lift. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, Robert. I know Robert personally. Yeah.
I watched that and I was like, what? Like that exists? That seems like such a game-changing thing if you can bring in technology like that, because essentially what he's doing is he's finding the, like the ultimate disposition algorithm where you can sell a deal for a higher price, like in a shorter amount of time. Have you ever, are you getting involved with that? Do you know anything about Investor Lift? Do you have something similar to that?
Yeah, so I worked with a couple people that were working on Investor Lift and all that good stuff, like Nick Perry, if you've ever met Nick or anything.
Yeah, he was on the podcast.
Yeah, so I've been on. So when Nick and Robert were actually first getting started with Investor Lift, I was working with them on the beta version of it. So amazing product, and I was kind of sharing some of the ways that they can kind of accelerate it and all that good stuff. So I have nothing but good things to say about those guys. They have a great technique and a great way to buy, massive amounts of data and get you guys connected with the right people at the right time. So using something like that, and Steve Trang had, I don't know if he still does it. He had an app back in the day, a couple years ago. I don't know if he still has the app or whatever. I'm going to imagine he probably still has it out there because he probably paid a handsome amount for developing it. But basically it was selling your deals on there, and you can post, your deals and all that good stuff. So I've used both of those tools and really great tools to help you out. But one of the best things to do is like honestly build it organically.
Yeah.
Not going to lie, you build a lot better relationships with them that way, instead of like just cold texting people and emailing them or sending them RVMs and stuff like that.
Right.
You build it off of, like, we've built a lot of our buyers list off of Facebook. So I was in a mastermind with Nick Perry, and this was, I don't even know, like 3-4 years ago. And he was talking about how he had like a bot that went into Facebook groups and just started scrubbing everyone who ever dropped a name, a phone number, an email address, anything related to buying houses cash. So like, he's by far like one of the people that I was really blessed to be able to kind of learn a lot from his organization and what they were doing and how massive he built his buyer list, because he wholesales in every 50 states, which is just insane. And they're doing like 60 plus deals a month. Like they're hauling ass, right? And when you see something like that, it makes you think like, oh shit, like it's so possible to build our buyers list. Like our buyers list right now is about like 22,000 people that we've built organically of just building up and getting more people interested about buying cash, right? From one-off, people that buy a couple rentals to people that are, big dogs that are buying hundreds of houses a year or, thousands a year, if like it's like a hedge fund or something like that too. So you just gotta figure out where to find those people and build it up. It's really easy. I mean, like I talked with a guy the other day that he's like, yeah, like, I'm selling a $10 million piece of land. We're like under contract on it. I'm going to have some capital free of like, like $8 million after the sale or whatever. And it's like, this guy's on my buyers list calling about a property that we were wholesaling. And it's like, you get connected with some very like, high net worth individuals because you're providing them an opportunity. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's so cool. I mean, just that alone, building the relationships with those kind of people is worth so much more than just like the one deal that you're working on. So I can definitely see how that's the case.
Yeah. Anyone that I meet, whether it's on acquisitions or disposition, it's how do I go after that lifetime connection with them? Right. Because that's where I'm not looking at making money with you today. I'm like, how do we make money like 30 years down the road? Like, cause that's what's going to make you really successful in this business is like, how do I like push it out like as far as we possibly can to treat this relationship like it's the beginning, whether we've known each other for a day or whether we've known each other for 10 years, right? How does it feel like it's like the beginning of the relationship that we're building?
Yeah. One of the things that I always have to kind of readjust my perspective on is when you're talking to people that are in real estate, it just seems like everyone's doing so many deals and there's so many offers that are being sent out every day and so much marketing. It's like, is there any room left for other people? What's your opinion on that? Do you think that there's enough meat on the bone for everyone in the real estate investing side, or is it like sometimes just the top dogs are going to be eating?
The funny part, I thought about that too when I was first getting started, was like, is there enough room for me on this, like this planet, this world, right, to actually do this business, right?
Yeah.
Guys like Nick Perry or, guys that, are in even my local network that are, closing 10, 30, 45 deals a month, right? And it's like, how am I going to do a deal, right? Like these guys, like everyone's going to go to that guy, right? But the reality of it is that I can't buy every house. You can't buy every house. The big hedge funds can't buy every house. The small local buyers can't buy every house, right? Like there's so much, like I live in a market. I live in Phoenix, by the way, for those of you guys who don't know. And, I'm in probably one of the most like, saturated markets, to be completely honest and transparent with you. But I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, holy shit, I live in probably one of the best opportunities because look at how many other people are killing it in my industry. You know what I mean? And that's how we look at it, is like, anytime there's competition, that means that like, it's obviously fruitful. You know what I mean? Like if there wasn't no competition in like your market, like you might be questioning, holy shit, does anyone want to buy a house here? You know what I mean? Like you definitely want to be careful with that. So like how I look at it is, doesn't matter what market you go into, that you can be successful at it. It really just determines on how much you're willing to put into it to get the level of success that you want. If you just want to go make 100 grand or 50 grand a year, you can easily do that in this business with just a couple of transactions, or if you want to go be the next Open Door or Offer Pad or whatever, you can go do that too. You know what I mean? Like anything is possible if you decide that it's possible. So I used to think that way, and I just changed my perspective on it, and deals started happening. Deals started doing, because like I wasn't doing deals for a while. You know what I mean? Like just like the majority of people that are watching and getting started. And when you're first in that like level and you're like, how the hell do I get a deal? Like everyone else is buying around me. You see all the success. Don't let that get to you. Let it motivate you, not let it discourage you from going out and doing it, because it shows you that it's possible. That's one of the reasons why I try to post as many times as I do about when we do a new deal or whenever, something like that, because I want it not to brag about, oh shit, look, and I'm making money, right? It's more about, hey, it's possible. Like, dude, I started out putting out signs and flyers, right? Like now I'm buying houses. Like I'm living the dream that I wanted to live when I was 16 years old. And I think it's wild to think about that when you really look back at your perspective. And also just remember your goal and your dream is different than everyone else's, right? So don't try to compare yourself to anyone, because that's where it's going to be difficult for you to actually enjoy and have fun in this business too.
Yeah. And kind of just to piggyback off that, I think if someone were to listen to this podcast, right, and they were to just pick it apart piece by piece, we didn't explain every single term, but if you sit down, you listen, you look up, okay, like what is a fix and flip? What is other people's money? What does this mean? And there's enough that we have just covered in this podcast to take you from being, like $1 in your bank account to being able to leverage other people and learn and grow a real estate business. Like with this information, you could be at $1 million just by what you just talked about. And so like, there's so many opportunities out there in real estate, which is one of the things you first said, is that you love it because there's just so many ways to be successful. And there's so many examples, which is like the purpose of the podcast, is talk to people like you, like Nick Perry, all these crazy people that are motivating and doing it at a high level. There's so many examples. So what stops people from taking action? Like it just seems like it's at this point, if you make the intention to go learn and educate yourself, that it's purely just a mindset thing. What's that barrier, and why don't people just go take action, in your opinion?
They're afraid of the success is I think the biggest thing. Like if you think about it, like the things that you're doing today, like everyone likes constant, like a constant in their life. That's why people take a 9-to-5 job, is to know, hey, I'm going to go sit down next to Mary every single day at my desk. I'm going to get the same emails. I'm going to get the same calls. I'm going to get the same thing. And a lot of people are afraid to change, and it's scary when you're changing. And I think a lot of people are afraid of what other people are going to think about them, right? If I go put this out there in the world and, I don't succeed, or I don't do well, or I don't get where I want to go, like I'm going to look like a loser or a failure. And I think that's the farthest from the truth. I think a lot of people that, don't even get started, that's the true failure. It's like not even getting started, right? And you're going to make mistakes. I mean, I lose money on deals. I lost $7,500 last month on a deal. Thought, I could go hard on my earnest money. I had a buyer all tied up. Buyer bailed out, left me hanging, and now I lost a decent amount of money for most people, right? And there's like constant punches in the face. You're always going to get hit down. Like even as much as we get like things rolling, like we're always battling other shit that's going on, right? Like this business is constantly problem solving, like I've said a couple times. So like when shit doesn't go well, you just got to keep going. Like even when you're taking action and like you're just getting started, like there's been multiple deals where we've spent hours and hours and hours on, made zero money, right? And there's been deals that I've spent an hour on and made a shit ton of money. Like it's like you never know like when that deal is going to work the way it needs to work. And if you just keep taking action, you're going to get somewhere, right? So it's better to start today than never get started and be like, oh shit, like I want to do this business eventually. But I would just say like don't let the fear of success scare you, because it's a good thing and it's going to change you and become a better person. And you really got to focus on yourself too. Like, I don't read very many real estate books, like to be completely transparent with you. I more read like personal development and all that good stuff. When I first got started, I read a lot of real estate books because I want to educate myself about the terms and, the way that, you're able to structure deals. But like, really, that's not what's going to help you get to the next level. What's going to help you to get to the next level is yourself and what you're doing to build yourself up, because it's scary when you're going to sign, the first deal that I did that was a flip. I was signing a $60,000 check. Like I was scared shitless out of my mind doing that, right? Never did it before. And I was like, I'm going to lose all this money if I fuck up, right? Like, and you just got to remind yourself like, hey, like this is new. This is, different, but it's going to be okay. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to be successful. I'm so glad I did that flip because I made like 55 grand on that deal. Right. And, that was that progression in that step. I got back to 60, got back plus 55, right? Not a bad deal. I think most people would take that in a 4-month period. Right. And, at first, but I thought I was going to lose money. I thought I was buying a bad house. I was like, shit, I'm like screwed. Like, you know what I mean? And you just got to remember, like, it's not a big deal if you do flop. Like there's plenty of time, like, especially if you're younger like us, you got plenty of time, right? You can always make more money. You can always do more things. You can always bounce back from anything that happens.
Yeah, I don't think it could have been said better. That's a great point. And I like the way you phrased it, where they're afraid of the success, because that kind of turns it in a different light, where it's like, oh, wait, maybe, yeah, everyone thinks they want success, but am I willing to achieve it and be okay with where I'm at once I do and what the cost is if it doesn't. Well, one of my mentors I talk with every week just about real estate and trying to learn and absorb as much as possible. One of the things he said to me was, like what's the worst thing that happens? You go bankrupt, then what? That's not illegal. This is America. It's like literally designed for you to fail and then be able to start again. Like in some countries, I'm kind of just talking out of my ass right now, but I think that in some countries, if you go bankrupt or do things that would financially cause, a problem or whatever it is, I'm sure that's probably illegal in some places. Here, it's like you can fail and you can start over. And like, your credit's bad for a few weeks? Buy a deal creatively. Like you don't need a credit. There's so many starting points. If failure is just an illusion kind of in your mind, yeah, it sucks, but like you're saying, it's just part of the process. So
yeah, 100%. And it is illegal in some countries to go bankrupt. Like they won't let you do it and you have to pay off that money, right? And how I look at it is like the government's going to let you go get all of like, I went to college and, they're going to let you go take on all of the student debt, right? And that's, you can't basically go bail out of that and go, but I'm going bankrupt, right? So, but when you go buy a house or something like that, like you have your down payment in there, you have the renovations or whatever you have in the house, right? The equity that you have. And, if you go bankrupt on that, it's like, you can just wash it off. Right. And I think it's wild that you can literally go to school to go get a piece of paper, you know what I mean? And go take out unforgivable debt for the rest of your life at a stupid interest rate too. But yet, people are afraid to go get a hard money loan. You know what I mean? Like that's going to go make you money, right? Like I find it mind boggling that you're able to do that and how that's even legal. Through the government, but it is what it is, right? It's the rules that we have then that we work with. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, to kind of bring this to a close, one question I always like to ask is, what's your definition of wealth?
I would say my definition of wealth is becoming like a legacy. So it's more than just, just having the financial freedom to go do whatever I want, wherever I want. It's more about the impact that I'm able to have and the legacy behind that. So one of the things that I really want to do and a goal of mine is to accomplish is to give $1 million to charity every single year, right? And be able to have my business to do that, right? But without my business making obviously an absorbent amount of money, over $1 million a year, I can't accomplish that goal. But I don't wait until I accomplish that goal to start donating $1 million a year, right? I start with that goal today, right? By doing what I can to start working up to that goal. Because if you made $100,000 and you're afraid to give, let's say $10,000 away to charity, when you go make $1 million, you're not going to give $100,000 away, or vice versa. If you made $1 billion, you're not going to go give $1 million. Right. So it's like building like those steps today. Like that's kind of what my legacy and definition of wealth is to be more than just kind of, someone who had money, was to have impact inside of the society and to do something that's better than, just being a rich asshole. So
that's awesome, man. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think you provided more value than, anyone deserves. So thanks for doing that. And I'm excited to post this one. Is there anything you want to kind of plug, social media, things to websites like that?
Yeah. So if you guys want to get connected to me, Instagram, I'm very active. So it's at Kyle Allen 12, and then Allen spelled ALLEN instead of the other one. So if you guys can go check me out on there, I have a ton of free resources and content to help you guys get started investing in real estate. If you guys want those, literally give most of my shit away for free unless it costs me money. Because I don't see a point in not giving it away and helping other people, because that's kind of how I got started. So if you guys want those resources, from contracts to scripts, to even, trainings that I have about how to go get your first deal, go out there and go check it out. And then if you guys want to follow me on YouTube or TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever I'm at, you guys can get connected with me. And if you guys ever have any questions or any deals that you guys want to talk about, feel free to either just shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook. My number's out there. You can go find me, text me, and all that good stuff too. So
that's awesome. Kyle Allen, everybody, get wealthy.
Perfect, guys. You have a good one.